Hi, this is Bob Gersh, and today's topic is how inflation affects the housing market. How inflation affects the housing market. Have you ever wondered how inflation impacts the housing market? Believe it or not, they're connected. Whenever there are changes to one, both are affected. Here's a high-level overview of the connection between the two, the relationship between housing inflation and overall inflation. Shelter inflation is the measure of price growth specific to housing. It comes from a survey of renters and homeowners that's done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The survey asks renters how much they're paying in rent and homeowners how much they'd rent their homes for if they weren't living in them. Much like overall inflation measures the cost of everyday items, shelter inflation measures the cost of housing. And for 4 consecutive months, based on that survey, shelter inflation has been coming down. Why does this matter? Well, shelter inflation makes up about 1/3 of overall inflation as measured by the Consumer Price Index. So when shelter inflation moves, it leads to noticeable moves in overall inflation. That means the recent dip in shelter inflation might be a sign that overall inflation could fall in the months ahead. That moderation would be a welcome sight for the Federal Reserve. They've been working to get inflation under control since early 2022. While they made some headway, it peaked at 8.9% in the middle of last year. They're still trying to get it to the 2% goal. The latest report is 3.3%. Inflation and the federal funds rate. What's the federal funds rate been doing to lower inflation? They've been increasing the federal fund rate. That interest rate influences how much it costs to borrow and how much banks have to pay to borrow from each other. When inflation climbed, the Fed responded by raising the federal funds rate to keep the economy from overheating. The relationship between the two, each time inflation starts to climb, the Fed raises the federal funds rate to try to get it back to its original target of 2%. The most recent spike in inflation, the Fed's action to raise the federal funds rate to fight that, and the moderation of inflation that happened in response to that hike. As inflation gets closer to the Fed's current 2% goal, they may not need to raise the federal funds rate much further. A brighter future for mortgage rates. So, what does all this mean for you? While the actions coming out of the Fed don't determine mortgage rates, they do have an impact. As Mortgage Professional America explains, mortgage rates and inflation are connected, however, indirectly. When inflation rises, mortgage rates rise to keep up with the value of the US dollar. When inflation drops, mortgage rates follow suit. While no one can predict the future of mortgage rates, it's encouraging to see the signs of moderating inflation in the economy. The bottom line, whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just stay informed about the housing market, let's connect. This is Bob Gersh with East Coast Capital. We do this blog, video, and podcast Monday through Friday at AskBobGersh.com. If you have any questions, best way to reach out to me is through AskBobGersh.com. If you do see me in a local coffee shop, tap me in the shoulder. Let's sit down, have coffee, and talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. Have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week. Enjoy life, and if I can be any service, just reach out through AskBobGersh.com. Until next time, thank you.